All right, we're calling to order at 6:09 p.m. Welcome to the December 18th Community Engagement Committee meeting. Call to order. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes that Rita sent out earlier today or earlier this week? I can't remember when that came out. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes? Changes, adjustments? All right, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Chris, Dr. Milner?
I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't think I'm allowed to make that motion.
Okay, you can say, Mike, the question is on approval of the minutes as distributed. All those in favor?
Okay.
Mhm.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as distributed? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll say that it carries. So Dr. Jones is back. I took over your meeting. Do you want it back?
He's
Do your thing, Mike. I'm getting set up. my apologies, everybody.
All right.
Mhm.
So next we have public engagement plan updates. And I guess that's a combination there of Dr. Jones and Dr. Rollins. So I don't know who wants to start.
Would you like me to go? Sure. So welcome you all. I mean, well, not welcome. Well, thank you all for having me, I should say, as opposed to welcome. Yeah, so I met with Rita. Two things I want to talk about, share with you all. The first is I shared with her my availability for the latter part of January, all of February, and I think all of March, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we held off on April because of spring break. I think that's my understanding. But I share with her that for the most part, I'm even willing to we can do these on the weekends, we can do them whenever possible, where we can get the most amount of participation from the members of the community. That's my thoughts. And I'm anticipating that we'll do potentially more than one in some weeks, when we have to. This is what I do need from you all. I need you all to help me with the first part of those meetings. If you can remember, the meetings are, the idea was where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. That was kind of the theme of the meetings. And then I'll leave the second section, the second half, or the second part of it, in the interaction with the members. But where we've been, I just threw out there some names of people who could speak to that. But I want you all to help me think about that. Some people, and I think we probably need more than one person who can do that piece. But I want you all to start thinking about that, because I think we'll start the first meeting in the latter part of January to start thinking who are the people who can speak to where we've been, where we are. This is the members from this community, as well as the individual from the respective community. They'll do that part, and then where we're going, of course, or do her part, what we can and cannot do, and then we'll go into the interactive section with the members. I want you all to think about that. So be thinking about that, because this is going to come sooner rather than later. And the reason I want more than one person, because I plan on making all 10 of these meetings, but I know that schedules won't allow everyone to make all 10 of these meetings. So I need you all to help me think through that. Oh, sure, Chris.
Yeah, I had talked to my homeowners association group, and they had already scheduled us for January 10th. And since you're saying the later part of January, I need to know what I need to tell them and what.
Hold on, wait a minute.
I'm talking about.
Please forgive me. I didn't know we had the 10th. Let me just look at the 10th on my calendar. I can probably do the 10th. I thought it was the later part. Thanks for sharing.
No, our original meeting was with Portland on January 10th, but that's going to now be in Portland on February or March, because Mike clarified that at our last meeting, Chris. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I had sent an email saying that I couldn't come to the last meeting, but I had gotten in contact with Park Duval, and they were good for January 10th.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay. All right, then that's
would've
on
been-
me if that's the case. Let me
Would've been,
see.
I guess,
All
back
right,
in
Chris.
October.
So to let you know, I can do the 10th though. I mean, if
Okay,
we're gonna do the
that's
10th,
good.
I'm available. But
Okay.
you all, if you figure it out and you all want to move forward, we can do the 10th
And
if it works with
Chris,
everyone else's schedule.
had you said previously that it's in the clubhouse building there in Park Duval?
No, they do it in it's not in the clubhouse. I forget what it's called, but it's like the senior home, and they've got this room in the back of it. I have the address. I think it might have been in the email, but if not, I'll find it. and get it
Okay,
to
and
you.
just
But
make
it is in
sure,
Park Duval.
just make sure that Rita and I have it so we can put it in the announcements.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing on that. Chris, I'll talk to you offline because that's one of the things I was going to tell you. I've met with Dr. Wade. And once we're finished with this, I'll give you all the update with regard to the media campaign. She's not really going to hit the media campaign. She is for El Home the first week of January, but with regard to public engagement, she's looking more around hitting that media piece around Martin Luther King. Okay, for the public engagement, because she said that the first week of January, nobody will be listening to anything because, with regard to media, because January 1st is on that Monday. So they're going to start the public engagement campaign about the middle of January. However, if they are tied to the 10th, we will make that happen in advance of anything going out. But I may need to talk to you about if they have any flexibility in that. But if it's engraved in blood, we'll make it happen.
I'm sure they can be flexible with it. So, and
Okay.
the other thing that I meant to ask, I thought I did, but do we know how long this would take? How long?
The schedule-
Hour and a half.
Hour and
We're
a
going to
half?
schedule them for an hour and a half.
Okay.
Now, whether it takes the full hour and a half or not, that's fine if it doesn't. But we're going to schedule it for an hour and a half. Isn't that correct, Dr. Rollins?
That is correct.
And that's the maximum.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I would guess that it's gonna take at least that long because I think once people get talking and asking questions and dialogue starts, I think the time will go pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't think it will be done less than that.
And I think the notion or the idea was to do an hour and a half scheduled, but understanding we may go the 2-hour span. So we have some flexibility, Dr. Gabe, what you just suggested. So officially it's an hour and a half, but if we went over, we have a 2-hour window. But we're not publicizing it as 2 hours, publicizing it as an hour and a half. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
Great. And you all feel free to, I can't even see you on my, I'm in my grandmother's house in Mississippi, y'all. I'm pulled over, so I can't even see Gabe. So you all just interrupt me. I saw Chris's hand, but I can't see everyone on the committee. So just interrupt me while I'm going. The second part is the elevator speech and the talking points. So my initial plan was to work with the full board on the elevator speech and talking points. And to be honest, the reason I wanted everyone to feel like it was their speech, it was their ideas. And I thought that was the best way to move forward to get us all closer to one accord. At this point, especially if we're going to move by January 10th, we just don't have time to do it the way I initially intended to do it. So here's my thoughts. I'm going to create a first draft. I'm going to submit that draft to you all, this committee, the Community Engagement Committee, as well as the Communications Committee. I'll send it to Rita and let her disseminate it amongst the group. And then you all, I'll do the first draft. You all tweak it, edit it, do whatever you want to do in your meeting in January. I have it to you all before that meeting. You all do what you want to do in that meeting. And then from this committee, you all submit it to the larger committee. I think it's the third week in January, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 22nd, I want to say.
Fourth.
Your fourth
January 22nd, the fourth Monday.
Okay, the fourth Monday. I'm sorry, the fourth Monday. And then someone from this, and you all submit it and allow the full board to edit it. And then from there, we can do what I was thinking in terms of having the cards created or
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward. I want to hear your thoughts on that plan. If I do the first, I send you all a draft and you all edit it from there or tweak it however you see fit. And it comes from this committee as opposed to coming through me.
How does what you just described differ from what you originally had in mind?
So initially, I wanted the full board, all 9 neighborhoods and the rest of the board members to come together, and we walked through it individually, and we created it as a group. And I thought that way we would get more buy-in, and people would hear because the conversations are very important for people to hear. We're not going to say this because it may imply this. We will say that because it will imply that. It's really a good exercise to do, and it really what it does is it shows those members who are probably not as engaged as some of the other members. It shows them the thought process and it shows what the full board wants to say. This is what we want to say to the community, as board members, because you're the many representatives of the board when you go out. You are the whole board when you're talking to Park Duval or Chickasaw or Shawnee or whatever. You are the board. And so I was hoping that we can come together as a board, as a whole board, and say this, and create this thing, this idea, this talking point, and then you all go out and you feel comfortable being the many boards. And we know as a board, everyone's at least been told the same thing to say. and speaking from the same, that was my initial plan. What I'm saying now is I'll do the first draft. You take this, you all tweak it, beat it up, edit it, however you think. And then you submit it, you as a committee, you submit it to the full board and let them, I think if y'all can allocate a considerable amount of time of talking through the different parts on it, it'll still have a similar effect, but the other way was it gives them buy-in from the beginning. We write it up as an exercise in person. And it's a tad bit different, but I think this will still get the job done, but it would have been more effective, in my opinion, doing it the other way.
So I just have one more quick question, and then I'm going to be quiet because I'm talking a lot. How would the timeline need to be adjusted to accommodate the initial plan that you stated?
I'm fine with it. I just hate to keep pushing the community meetings back because I think some of the pushback we're receiving is that we're not getting to the community. We're not hearing from the members of the community. This would just push us. I mean, I guess we could do it simultaneously. And I'm open to whatever. I'm telling you, I'm as flexible as I can be. If you all tell me it's better to do it the other way, I can do the January 10th meeting, or I can do whatever you all think is better. I'm open. Lauren, you're muted. You're talking. I want to hear you. I can't see Chris.
I'm sorry. I have a new puppy and he's been yelping, so I try to keep myself on mute so you don't think I'm over here torturing a small animal. But I think that it's important for us to keep in mind that we've set an expectation that we're going to finish these community engagement meetings by the first quarter of 2024. We've talked about that in the board meetings, and that's what we've communicated to folks who have asked us, when do you plan to do these meetings? I would be a little concerned about now, since we know we've got at least one meeting scheduled in January. I'm not certain that we have time to have all of us come together and do a bottom-up drafting of the statement. I do think that if Dr. Rollins does the first draft and gets critique and input from this committee and then from the larger board, that's the best we can do given the time constraints that we have, but it still is a method that allows everyone to weigh in.
Okay. And if I can add to that, because Dr. Rollins and I had a conversation about it earlier today. So what I originally thought would be helpful if Dr. Rollins did the draft, got the draft to us. Dr. Wade is very involved in this whole communication process, she and her team. Now, one of the things we talked about, Laura, which I didn't have a chance to get with you, we were just talking through it. The first board meeting, in January is January 22nd. So I don't know if this works for Dr. Rollins because that's a Monday and we may have a conflict, but I was thinking that the Community Engagement Committee meeting is January 15th. I believe the 15th is that Monday. Yeah, it's the week before. And if we looked at this, we could actually plan to use part of the board meeting for training on this elevator speech. Say, for example, we did the first 30, 45 minutes for the business, and then we do the balance of the board meeting for the training, because you already have the board coming together during that period. If we stick to the schedule that Dr. Wade has suggested, that's why, Chris, I was asking you earlier if we could be flexible on January 10th, because she's talking about the first week of January hitting the media market for LHOME, and then by the middle, a little bit around Martin Luther King's birthday, hitting the market for the public engagement pieces. So if we do have a meeting toward the end of January, the timing would kind of fall into place. Nothing is engraved in stone, but that may be something to consider if we want to try to get that training in for the full board, to try to coordinate that with the first meeting, Laura. And like I said, I didn't really have a chance to chat with you about that possibility.
Okay.
But that's
That
what
would
Dr.
mean-
Rollins and I talked about.
That would mean that the first neighborhood meeting would take place after that board meeting on the 23rd.
Or the end of January, as we originally were talking about. Because Chris, I totally missed it or forgot about what you were saying on the 10th, because I was thinking about Portland. Because remember, Mike, we were originally talking about doing Portland early January, and that got pushed to February or March. And then based on that is what I was working with Dr. Wade on in terms of the schedule. So if Park Duval can be flexible, then we can maybe incorporate their meeting being that first meeting at the end of January. But I'll talk to you offline about that, Chris, to see if we can make that work.
Yeah, I think that it's important to have that Park Duval meeting in January. If we're going to do board training, we have to come to the board meeting with the statement already prepared. That means that all of us are going to be doing work outside of the board meeting, reviewing and providing input on that statement. That's really critical, that all of us commit to. If Dr. Rollins does that first draft, then the rest of us are going to commit to providing input and helping to finalize that statement prior to the January board meeting.
Well, I'm pretty sure Park Duval is going to be flexible, because when I spoke with the lady in charge, she was really trying to put us in with the normal homeowners association meeting. That's why I was asking about the time frame. So if we're going to be taking up an hour and a half to 2 hours, I really feel like it should be. And we had talked about that later on after I had already talked to her about it being a standalone meeting. So I think it's going to need to be at least, something where we can talk about it at our homeowners association meeting, but then have folks come back to a partnership meeting.
Let me ask you something, because I was curious about this when you brought it up initially, Chris. The homeowners association, does it include residents who live outside of the Park Duval housing development?
That meeting in itself does not. So that's another reason that we need to be.
Okay, so so that would mean that it's important for us to pick a date and a location for Park Duval, which is inviting for the full community and does not appear to be simply a homeowners association meeting.
Yeah, those meetings are usually in the evening. I think it's 5:30 or maybe 6:30. They usually last about an hour and a half. And I think it's usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So I don't know what would work for the majority of the neighborhood myself, but I would still think anything in the evening hours is going to work better than like a lunchtime thing or something.
Oh, yes, certainly, because people are at work during the daytime.
Right.
But again, my concern is when we say Park Duval, we mean the entire geographic area. So it's important to have a location and a way of inviting people that lets everybody know that they are included in the meeting.
Right.
Mhm. Okay.
So if I can just go, I don't want to take up the whole meeting, but I do want to talk about these workshops, kind of an agenda for the workshops. So we'll start the workshop. Of course, you all are going to work on the logistics on who can attend, who cannot attend, and do that part with the license and or bill or whatever way they may need. You will work on that. This is my thoughts. These are my thoughts, and you all just kind of tweak them as needed. So Laura, I guess you'll start the meeting. You'll start the meeting and introduce all the board members who are there, and all the board members and their the reason for the board. Then we'll turn it over to whoever will do from the board where we have been. And of course, we want to talk and just be as transparent. And you all say, I mean, of course, I'm all for being open, just telling the truth, and just being transparent as possible. This is where we've been. And I mean, just talk about where this is when we first got our charter. This is what we were told. This is what we were told we could do, could not do. This is these are the things we were doing over the year. This is when we finally got our official board, all nine communities represented. And this date, let's give a timeline. This is kind of where we've been. These are the things we've done so far. Of course, Chris, if we're going to do yours first, I'll just use yours, Park Duval, for an example. You and Gabe, or you and Dr. Milner, you do where we are now. This is where you talk about this summer, some of the things you discussed in terms of the different consulting. These are the things we learned, and some of the more recent decisions you've made from the entire board. This is where we've decided to go. This is where we are now. Hopefully you all, I don't know, I hadn't heard anything on the numbers yet, but I'm sure you all will tell me the answer to that. This is where we are now and what we are committing to do moving forward. At that point, we give it back to Laura, and Laura say, "Those her, this is what we can and cannot do. These are the things we can do. These are the things we cannot do with the resources and any updates. For example, the L homes, any other updates that you all may have during this point. We go from there to the facilitated question and answers, where oh sure, Michael, I'll tell you, interrupt me. I don't mind being interrupted. Just
So in addition to the what we can do and what we can't do, stuff that we have to do. So if we can expand that to 3 different things.
So I'm sorry, so what we can do, what we cannot do, so we're required.
Things that we have to do.
Must do, sure. I'm all about that. I think Laura, this is her portion, so I think if I don't have my notebook with me, so if you take notes on that,
Yeah.
Laura or Rita, sure. So what I'd like, and then of course we go to the facilitated discussion, and we'll end it after that. I'll probably turn it back over to either whoever is there, Laura or Gabe or whoever is there, to close out the meeting, and we'll go from there. This is what I'm thinking. I need your help. This is what I need the community to help. I know for each individual neighborhood, I want that neighborhood rep there to do the where we are now portion. This is what we're doing now. It's, and that gives credibility to the board with their person saying, okay, well, my guy, Christopher, is right here saying, this is what we're doing right now. I don't know. I mean, I heard what they've been doing. I know I heard rumors, but this is what my guy, Chris, is saying we're doing right now. And that gives credibility as we move forward in the meeting and move forward with the organization and working with them in the future. My question for you all, I need your help with some individuals who can speak to where we've been, and individuals who will speak transparent. I mean, I guess we probably could even do some talking points for them or something, because you don't want ramblers, you don't want individuals saying too much or saying things that we don't want out there, but you also want to be transparent, so we need to work on the where we've been portion, because that's going to answer a lot of questions up front, and it's going to really help this end part of the meeting, because they're going to get up there and you're going to have those complaining sessions. But if you have a person up front and say, hey, yes, we started 2 years ago on this date. This is what we were chartered. This is what we've done. We didn't get a full board into this portion. We lost a person here. This person, this is where we are. as of this date, and then stop and say, without taking any questions. And then eventually you go on to the next person. For example, in Park Duval, Chris and Gabe will say, this is where we are now. We got our full board on this date. This is where we are from the summer of 2023 till whatever, January the 10th, or not January 10th, but whatever day we're doing Park Duval, you know. This is where we've been. Here's some key initiatives we voted on. This is just some things that we've done. And then we'll go on to the 3 questions that we discussed. Michael said, you know, what we must do. What we can and cannot do. Sure.
Let me raise a question here. The main focus for these meetings and the piece for which we need to leave the maximum amount of time is the residents who've come to the meeting, who are spending their time coming out in the evening. We need to devote the maximum amount of time to them telling us what's on their mind. Now, the concern that I have is, I do think it's important for us to do this historical thing, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. But in my mind, it needs to be concise and very, very brief. I would also say, for our board members who are attending, the most critical role they're going to play that evening is they are going to make their neighbors feel comfortable. They're going to make sure that everybody gets a chance to say what's on their mind, and they're also going to set the tone for hospitality and openness. Each board member, when we're in your neighborhood, you are the point person. You're the individual that gives us credibility. But I would say, Dr. Rollins, for the where we've been, where we are, and where we're going piece, that has to be shrunk down to maybe 5 minutes at the max.
That's fine.
And Michael, you have your hand up.
Could we do the how we got to now, or, you know, historical piece as a handout?
Yeah, and maybe not devote any time to a speech on it.
Well,
that what you-
30 seconds. Here's an overview of, you know, what we've done and the timeline of how we got to now. Now we want to talk about the future, and that way it's out there and we have consistency, because we're going to have the same handout.
Yeah. I would not be opposed to that, because again, my thing is the maximum amount of time that evening has to be devoted from hearing from these residents. And I was going to suggest that we have one person who's just going to do a real brief speech, but a written handout is even better. If you know,
I didn't think of the
handout. Handout is even better.
I'm all about structure. I like structure. I was going to say structured talking points, but I think that's just even better.
People can get that when they come in, and as we're welcoming people, we can make reference to it. But our whole focus that each of those evenings has to be those people in the neighborhoods who came out to tell us what's on their mind. And that's how
and I think go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Locke.
Got a handout similar to that like a year ago, and maybe we can take that and tweak it and update it.
I think it's possible for us to put something together. Yeah.
I
you send that to me, Michael, and I see Chris' hand up. Chris, y'all just jump in. I'm telling you, I can't see everyone, so y'all please just jump in.
Well, I was just saying that if we do the handout, I think it'd be really good idea to have like the partnership contact information in the website, kind of give them directions on, hey, for more information, go here.
Yes.
Questions.
Yeah.
I think that'll be very helpful.
Yeah. So
And I think Dr. Wade can help us with that. Her team can
think
help
so.
us that piece right there.
I think so. Now, one of the things that I'm concerned about is I'm not sure that it's a good thing to put each the board members on the spot and to help and to tell them they're going to have to give a speech in front of this audience. Okay, so there's a way for us to give this information out that still leaves the maximum amount of time we have available to hear from the people who've come to the meeting. So a handout works for me
I like that.
with reference to the web page. And then everybody who's on the board, even if it's not your neighborhood, if you are there, your role is the same as the point board person. It's to make people feel welcome
Absolutely.
Mhm.
and to convey empathy and concern.
And Laura, I think you're 100% on point, because when you think about the purpose of these meetings, the purpose of the meeting is to get the feedback of the priorities of the neighborhood so that that information can be collated to help inform the entire board of what the investments or you know, the ideas of what the projects would be.
Yeah.
So I think you're 100% on point with that. And I'm just saying, based on our the meetings that we've been having with our funders, like, you know, Laura as the interim president and CEO, that's exactly what she does. She does those three pieces for them, and in a very concise manner, you do that. And then we turn it over, because this meeting is for the residents.
Mhm.
You know, for them, for us to hear and to get that feedback. And I just think that's super important. So you're right on point with that.
I see that Dr. Gabe Jones has his hand up and has had his hand up for a minute. And I was just wanting to recognize you.
Thanks, Dr. M.
Welcome.
But one of the things, so I definitely understand maximizing the time for residents to speak, because that is what the space is for. I do think that, in my mind, a part of the function of that, where we've been, where we're going, was to sort of acknowledge the discomfort that some people may feel and say, hey, we know this is how you may feel, this is how you may have felt, this is how you may still feel right here today, but this is how we're moving forward together. And these are the people that we have in the room that are committed to doing this the right way. Because I think if we don't devote at least some time to saying that out loud, when we get to the feedback portion, that's what we're going to get. Instead of people being able to actually move forward and give us their feedback on what they think needs to happen, it's just going to be them airing out whatever grievances that they feel like we're speeding past or we're ignoring. And I do think it's a delicate balance, because I understand exactly what you're saying, because we do have to maximize that time. But I think it will compromise our ability to engage with them if we don't have sort of some sort of level setting in the beginning. And even if we wanted to just, I mean, I know I don't want to like change up things too much, but even if there's a little bit of time at the beginning of the meeting for folks to just come in and talk to us, to just have a snack and just talk to us as human beings who are doing this work, something to sort of, I don't know, just sort of
people feel comfortable.
Exactly. And also make them feel like we understand how you may or may not feel, but the reason we're here is to move forward with you. And just to get that out, because I in my mind, that's what that portion was going to achieve. And I do think we'll be missing something if we don't have something
we can do like a both ands. We can still have it written out. And if we talk about it, we just can't talk about it for like 30 minutes.
Right.
We have to have make it concise.
Well, and it's going to be a small representation of the population at these meetings. I mean, so if they have a handout, they can take it back and show it to their neighbor, remember, you know, what did they say? And then, you know, just have something to reflect back on.
Okay, so maybe we need to do both. We need to have the handout, but we also need to spend some time doing a real concise where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. I feel comfortable being able to do that because I've done that little speech like a million times with our funders, people who have given us money, just as part of the update to them. And I can do it in, as I said, 5 minutes or less.
I think that's great.
Mhm.
Another piece
Uh,
that we need to acknowledge is that if we have different organizations, you know, we've opened this up for other nonprofits to be in the space if they want to. And I think as, you know, I think part of maybe Laura's opening remarks will also establish the purpose and who's in the room. And we're not going to have those individuals on the agenda. They're in the room if they want to hear the information. And of course, when all of this is over and the report comes out, anybody and everybody who wants access to the information can have it. We're willing to share that. But I think that's all a part of the introductory piece so that everybody knows who's in the room. And, you know, part of, again, of the leveling up, setting up, as you say, Dr. Gabe, to make people feel comfortable to know who's, you know, why is this organization here? Well, that's added benefit. There's additional information if somebody has a question. And certainly, I would imagine we will use these opportunities as well for the El Home piece. I mean, we would be crazy not to have that information available, not necessarily on the agenda, but as
A
an
handout.
added benefit.
Mhm. So what is everybody thinking? How do you feel about what should occur at each meeting? Because we've got 10 of these to do,
mhm.
and you don't want to be by the 7th meeting beating your head against the wall because you
Absolutely. No,
should
that's
have
important.
used a different format. So give us
I
some
think-
feedback.
I think so. One thing, and I think, Ms. Laura, I think this is going to be predominantly on you, unless you say otherwise. But I can foresee a lot of questions about the money side of it. Like, what do people have to do to get the money? What kind of organizations can get the money? And I know we're going to talk about what we can do, what we can't do, and what we must do. But even in just talking through high level, this plan and getting feedback from my neighbors on what do you think of this? Is this something that you would attend? Immediately, I was peppered with questions about what kind of organizations can get the money? Are you giving this to nonprofits? Can my after school program get this money? Can on and on and on and on and on. And so I know I haven't talked a lot about that with folks, but I definitely think we need to be prepared for that. And I also think, and of course, this is something that you've done a million times, I'm sure, but in your opening remarks, I think it is so important that folks know that you are a resident, and that they hear that. And I'm sure that's what you're
Yes,
going to include.
I think that's important.
But
Yeah.
I do think that's a critical piece.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna quickly say, ditto to what Dr. Gabe said. That was the first thing that, excuse me, that the residents were asking me about as well when I was at the meeting. You know, how do we get the money? We need the money. How do we get it? What form do we need to sign? Who do we need to talk to? So yes, agreed.
Okay. Okay. So one of the critical pieces that we're going to have to talk about is the whole notion of us being a not-for-profit business. What does that mean? That we are investing in West Louisville. If we are investing, it's with an expectation of a return. And that's going to be the difficulty for some people to get, you know.
Right. So that's, but see,
Not a grant.
that's the part that is going to be different and difficult for many of the people to kind of grasp, I believe. And that's why I was envisioning where you come in and be the, I won't say the bad guy, but you come in and explain, you know, this is the difference. So you get their hopes up, you explain what we can do, what we can't, like this. That's very important. I think the history, while that's good for morale building, that part is the most important part moving forward. Hey, this is what we can, cannot, and must do. I think you have to be the person talking on that. I think you must. I think the only person that can really speak to that is you at this point, and should speak to that. I believe we should have one person speaking to that portion. So I think it's a great idea with the handout. So I think you heard Michael say that they did one similar in the past or a year or so ago. So if you have
I couldn't find it, but
okay.
I mean, on the point at hand, I think we phrase it as, we're here asking the community what returns they're looking for. It's what we're here to make the investment, but we want to make sure that the return is, in line with what the community seeks.
Well, and the community needs to tell us where they want us to invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What success looks like.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think we shouldn't phrase it as, this is the bad part, like.
Well, I'm
know,
sorry, but this is the part that so many people see this and heard these numbers and thought this organization is holding on to the money and don't want to give us this money that's supposed to be earmarked for us. And so I think when I say the bad part, I'm thinking it's just the truth when they realize that it wasn't as simple as we just have this big pot of money and we're just holding it. It's more so there are rules and regulations and bylaws and statutes and a number of things that we must adhere to prior to doing anything with the money. And one of the most important things, we have to come to you before we start making key decisions. And that's why we're here today. To lead them to now let's come to you all. We're and explain to them we have to hear from you and do this in according to our statute. We have to hear from you as we move forward. That's why we're here. And we're going to hear and listen to you as we make decisions moving forward.
It's just listening, and I think maybe Laura raised it a few minutes ago. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Gabe, your chair. I can do my comments after you.
No, I put my hand up to join in after you. I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay. It's, I think it's important that we all understand this is not going to be a piece of cake.
Right.
To begin with. Okay, because I see everybody nodding their head, right? Because I've heard people say it. Laura was talking about how important it's going to be that we help people to understand and that we educate. This is a business investment. And I think residents, what you said, Dr. Milliner, people want to know. And I think Sharon at the last meeting, when I was listening to the recording, your folks are saying, well, when are we going to get the money? I think a lot of people have this mindset that this is a personal gain, that it's going to be a grant, or all we have to do is apply for it. We just have to tell them what we need the money for. Right. This is totally different. And this is one of the things that was stated from the very beginning of this initiative, that this is a business. Chip, our financial advisor, keeps reminding us, this is a business venture. This is not a grant-making cycle process. Right. And that was reiterated in the last meeting. So we have to be ready for that. Dr. Gabe, we're going to have people to complain, or to no matter what we do, you're going to have some of that. So I think we need to be ready for it and just to figure out how we're going to address it.
That's why that where have we been, where are we right now, where are we going piece is so important. And the what can we do, what can't we do?
And what we must do.
Yes.
Michael.
Yeah. And some of that there's a lot of good news in what we must do, because if we hire someone or we make it possible by lending money for a business to come into the area, they have to use the neighborhood people to help do the building and they have to hire them after the business has been installed. That's good news for people.
Absolutely.
And
That's
that's
my
much
favorite part
better
of it.
than getting a one-time grant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That changes generations. That changes
Yes.
trajectories of life. I think Michael and Gabe's hand is up. I can't see Gabe anymore there. My screen
Yeah,
is.
Gabe
Miss
was-
Rita. Sorry, Mike. Real quick, Miss Rita, you started off by saying it's not going to be a piece of cake, and that made me think of what I was thinking of is: are we going to do anything to incentivize people's presence? Are we going to have food? Are we going to what are we going to have?
Well, let
to
me
get them
tell
out of the
you, I
house?
really think it's a
Ah.
faux pas to ask people to come out in the middle of the week and you don't give them something to eat.
Right,
You know,
Right.
we have to offer people something.
right, right. So-
Otherwise, it gives the appearance that we're being inhospitable.
right,
It
right.
doesn't have to be like a 3-course meal, but we
Right.
do need to provide something to help people to feel comfortable. Soft drinks,
And
water,
we have to decide or
snacks.
something.
Mhm,
Yeah.
we have to have
Something
something.
light, something
Mhm.
light, because we will not have confirmation on attendance numbers.
Yeah,
And one of the things we don't want to do is order stuff and have this overwhelming amount of stuff left over, but we can order things that we can use from one meeting to the next.
yes.
You know, little snack things
That's
like
right.
that.
We can certainly
Yeah.
have snacks and something for
Yes.
people to drink. We can have candy, you know, just something to make people feel relaxed. Not that we're going to hold them in a room for 2 hours and not give them anything to drink or eat, which is
It
really-
will not be cake, Dr. Gabe, where are you on the screen? I don't see him. He got kicked off or something. Will not be cake.
Well, I'm not coming then if there's no cake.
Mike?
Get little Debbie's, those carry over from meeting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think in selling this and, the community, like, if they've got ideas and, can prove the return, I don't want to set, the tone that, I know it's going to be difficult and everybody has their own stuff, but like, tell them how to sell, like what we're expecting on, their proposals. There's got to be a return, to the community and to the TIF and space and all of the other stuff. So, I mean, that I think is what we need to clear up. But I don't want to set a tone that, that the community can't bring stuff to us. I think we're coming to the community asking what the parameters of success are so that we can make sure that, we're investing properly, to get the returns that they want.
Yeah.
Let me ask you all this. This is not an easy question, but I want to know the answer to this. What are you all looking for in terms of return? Have you thought about this?
I want to make the neighborhood more sustainable so that my kids can stay here and my grandkids have a place, I mean, that's a long term.
Do they want more childcare closer to their home? Would they like to see safe, decent, and affordable housing, more of it? Is there a blighted area that they want changed in some way? Do they want more amenities, restaurants, things of that nature located in their neighborhood?
More shopping, so you don't have to
Yes, more shopping.
go to another state that, they close every couple decades, but
Yeah, are they interested in having more retail development so that they don't have to go to Indiana to buy clothing? or
More
go to the
grocery
dollar store?
stores,
Yeah,
more full service grocers in the district.
yeah.
I came in on the tail end of your question because my battery died and I had to jump back on. But I think
No
it could be
problem.
helpful for us to brainstorm categories with them to start out, whether it's food, shopping, education, childcare, different things, because I think that may help guide the discussion so that we're not jerking from one direction to another with different ideas. And so that we're all sort of thinking about the same concepts together, and then we move forward to the next and the next.
Mhm.
This is for the facilitated discussion.
Oh,
Is that what
Sharon.
you're referencing? I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Sharon has a question
Mhm.
or
Okay,
comment.
so where do we, I don't have these type of people in my neighborhood. Where do we get, if we're talking about more stores or daycares, where do we get the people to bring these things into the neighborhood? Because my people are thinking that we're coming to give them money to fix up where they live at, not to do something else, in
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Yeah. Our mission is to look at all of those quality of life and quality of place issues. There are businesses that will provide daycare if they are incentivized to put it in a neighborhood. If they're incentivized to locate their business in a certain neighborhood, they will do it. So they don't have to come up with an individual who can do it. It doesn't have to be someone in their neighborhood who can do it. They just need to tell us these are the kinds of services that we
Okay,
want to have. And then it's our task to figure it out, to get it there. You
okay,
see? Mhm. They just tell us what they need, what they want us to assist them with.
okay.
Mhm.
And may I add
Thank
to
you.
that, Laura? If I may add, when you all go back and start voting, Sharon, then it's your responsibility to represent not all of the neighborhoods that you attend, but to represent your neighborhood. Say, hey, well, when we went to my community, they were really saying they wanted more grocery stores or more
Mhm.
housing or more this. So when you're voting, that's when you come in and say, I'm here to represent the voices of those people who said they want
Okay.
more of this or less of that. So
Mhm.
that's the important part of being a neighborhood representative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, let me ask something out of curiosity. People are thinking that we're going to give them money to fix up their houses. That is a statutory ability that we do have.
Okay.
So people can say they're interested in funds being available for homeowner renovations.
Okay.
They can say that if that's
Okay.
what they
Yeah.
see a need is.
Okay.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean how that would be structured. That's
Mhm.
something the board would have to determine, right, Laura? Whether it's done from a business standpoint, like anybody who seeks funds to renovate their homes, or otherwise, should the board decide. Is that correct, Laura?
Yeah, the board can decide whether it can be a loan or whether it would be a grant up to a certain amount of money based on the borrower's
Okay.
age, time in their residence, etc.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of that like that issue specifically boils down to collateral requirements of
Mhm.
mortgages.
Yeah.
And if the appraisal doesn't support the loan, then the banks won't touch it. So
That's
I mean,
right.
do something where we make a deal with the bank that says, well, we'll forget the exact wording. We'll cover a certain amount of loan defaults, or we'll cover the bank, and then that makes it easier for the bank to make those loans, so that the bank has less risk going in. And then the community improves, the housing improves, the community member builds their wealth, the wealth increases in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
That creates situations where retail is more interested in locating because the
Exactly.
demographics support
Mhm.
what they're selling, and they want to make sure that people can, if they're going to build out $2 million to build a store, they want to make sure that the community has the money to come spend it at their store.
Now, the other issue on the home renovation, but again, we have the ability under statute to do it, to lend the money or to do it as a grant under certain circumstances. But we all can recollect when home renovation money was given, I think by the city, it may have been 20 years ago. It resulted in a nightmare for certain residences because the residents who were trying to get the work done on their home could not force the folks who were being paid to do the work to in fact do the work. The work was done in a shoddy way. Sometimes the work was not done at all, even though people were paid. So in the home renovation process, there are 1,000,001 things that need to be battened down in order for the process to work the way it's intended to work. And that is that the resident actually gets items fixed in the house that they need fixed. That's a big deal responsibility. But in the meantime, we do need to hear from residents about whether that's a significant need in their neighborhood. That's part of what they can tell us at these meetings.
And part of that feedback is also a springboard for the partnership to start informing policies and procedures. All of this stuff that we're talking about, because all of that has to be in place for everything that the board decides to do.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna be like Dr. Wade, Dr. Gabe, you had to veer off because of your batteries, but I did inform you that we will not have cake at these meetings.
We'll have
We'll have
snacks and
All
things.
right.
We'll have
I guess
snacks,
I'll
but it
still
won't,
come.
Mike
won't be cake, okay? Because
Mike did say we could get some little Debbie's. Mike said we could get some little Debbie's, y'all.
Or Miss Rita, if we knew someone,
Ignore that.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
Miss Rita, if only we knew someone who made delicious, delicious biscuits. If only. If only we knew somebody, we
I knew
would
that
have
was
an
coming.
option, but I don't
I
know.
knew that was coming.
I tried to stop him. I tried to. Oh, God.
So yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done. We will this week be finalizing these locations and the dates based on my conversation with Dr. Rollins. And we will, we will go from there. I think what we'll try to do is once I have the dates for each of the meetings, I will circulate that through the committee to make sure that there's not any major conflicts, especially with the neighborhood reps. Okay, because I pretty much have just gone through the calendar with Dr. Rollins based on his availability, and there's tremendous flexibility. And then of course, it will also depend on what we can lock down. Now, for most of the neighborhoods, we do have locations, but Dr. Gabe, I haven't heard anything from you with regard to Russell. Are we thinking?
Probably,
Or we have our board, what?
I'm sorry, go. What did you say, Miss Rita?
And then the Y is that the Y?
So the Y is technically not in Russell. It's across the street from Russell.
Right.
The African American Heritage Center is an easy spot that we could do, and I could talk to Jose over there. I know him pretty well. But I think that would be a good spot. And then of course we have the track complex as well.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think those two would be
Okay.
natural spots. But I have
Okay.
not talked to anyone from the track complex.
Mhm.
Just to be clear on that though.
The African American Heritage Center is a good spot.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's a
that's
good spot. People are used to coming there.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, we have to also be prepared. Some of these places that we may look at will charge a fee. And I can tell you that they will at the center. So we need to understand what that is.
Mhm. So Mike, what about in Portland? Have you scouted out?
He's got the the church behind the,
The Promise, it's basically the area behind the
Oh,
table.
that's right. You've
Right.
talked about that before. It's behind what now?
Say again?
I said,
table.
where,
Yeah,
the
you know where
restaurant,
the table
behind the
restaurant is,
no, I
18th and
Yeah,
4th.
L-Triple-C is also an option
Mhm.
Yep, that's a good one
with
as well.
Kevin Fields.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep, that's a really good
L-Triple-C.
one.
And then we talked to Alicia, so we're looking at the Shawnee Golf Course for there. Parkland, Sharon, you said Calvary. Have you talked with them? At the last meeting, you were going to talk to the pastor, Reverend Whitlow.
I haven't been able to talk to him yet.
And then Park Hill, Darlene, you talked about the Opportunity Board of Advisors location.
Yes, and also I'm going to talk with it's a couple of churches. I haven't had a chance to catch up with the pastors yet. I was going to talk to them. Mount Zion, that's there on Dixie Highway, and Cornerstone is on 22nd Street.
okay,
Okay.
okay. Those are good.
Okay. And then, so I'll have to get with Gary about Chickasaw, and I have some other people I'm talking with, and also Desmond. But Park Duval, they have a location, right, Chris?
Yes. they do.
Yeah. And so, Dr. Milliner, did we talk about a place for California?
Yeah,
Yeah, we had our issues with that, but Greater Friendship, which is on 20, right on 23rd.
Okay.
And there, but I thought that the Y was actually right on the border of California.
Yeah, it's like he said, I was confused about that, but we could actually I'll check that out to make sure on the border, because that's an easy location.
Yep, and I believe you're right, Dr. Milliner. I
Yeah.
believe it is in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we've got that one. So really, the only two places that neighborhoods would be Algonquin and Chickasaw. So within the next week or so, we should have dates and times locked down. And I will circulate that, like I said, so that we can get that to Dr. Wade in order for her team to incorporate that in the media piece.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sure others, to have those sooner than later so that I can start promoting it inside the neighborhood. And, you know, all of the,
Well, our deadline to have everything in place for Dr. Wade is by the 31st,
okay.
you know, with the holidays and everything. So we have to have it ready to have it for her.
Okay.
Anything else? Are we good, Dr. Gabe?
Okay.
Yep, I'm good. Thank
He's
you all
over
for
there
getting
thinking
started
about-
without me.
He's thinking about cake, Christmas and cake.
I ain't gonna lie. I've been thinking about cake ever since we brought it up. I've been thinking about it. I really am.
Okay. All right.
Gabe, I'm sending you some biscuits, man.
Oh.
Blueberry.
Hey, look, the squeaky
Anything
wheel
else?
gets the oil, y'all.
It's all jealous.
Yeah, evidently.
All right.
Evidently.
It goes
So
off
we're a little bit,
Friday.
we're a little bit over tonight. So thank everybody. It's 7:13.
All right.
All right.
Good night,
Thanks, you all.
everyone.
Good night.
Have
Are
a
we
holiday.
officially adjourned,
Without-
Dr. Gabe?
without
Are we officially
objection.
adjourned?
Yes,
Without
we're officially
objection.
adjourned. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Thanks,
You all have-
everybody. Good
have a nice one.
discussion.
Good
Have a
night.
Okay,
nice one.
thank you,
Good
Dr.
night.
Rollins.
All right,
Okay.
goodbye. Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.